Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the seventh episode of Crossroads. Today, in this episode, amongst us, we have Palash. Palash has been a very uh, he has been contributing to open source since a long time, and he is also a great proponent of a person who says you should not study much in college and do things on your own. He has also interned at many places like Hacker Earth, then he's presently working at Percona. So we have got a very strong guest today who is be sharing a lot of information and a lot of stuff with us. Hi, Palash, and first of all, let me welcome you to the show. Welcome.
Hi Guru, thanks for having me. And I worked for Hackerrank, not Hacker Earth.
Okay, sorry, Hacker.
And about not studying in college, that's a advice I give from a very like a privileged place. I didn't have to, but some people might have to. So like, don't take my word on it. Like,
Okay.
you might need the grades. So it's up to you.
Yeah, that's true. So first question to you would be like, how do you manage time? So like you have been doing internships since first year. I
Mm.
think every now and then you'll be either in one or the other internship. So how do you manage time basically with college and all?
So most of my internships were during the summer vacations or winter vacation or whatever.
Hmm.
Whenever they were in college, so I didn't really have to manage a lot of time. The only thing I had to do in college was to go to classes. I didn't really have good grades, so I didn't really had to go come back after the classes and study for exams or anything like that. So after my first semester, I was clear on one thing that I'm not going to get grades in the college, and which was a bit of a shock to me because in school I used to be those 90% of kids, and in
Hmm.
college I was getting single digits. I just stopped studying, so I
Okay.
thought that this is not going to happen. So let's just do something else, something I enjoy. So it wasn't a lot of work, and I think my grades are a proof of that. They're quite low. So
So grades don't matter that much when you come to engineering college, right? It's like
Yeah, they don't unless like you have to go for research and all, because then a few colleges they, or I guess most colleges they take a look at your grades. I've heard, I don't know.
Mhm. So the first internship that you got when you were in your college was at the end of first year, right? So how did that impact your uh, thinking about how to work, what all you have to do in future?
So the first internship, I wasn't expecting to get selected, but the guy, like, he was quite nice. First of all, it was an unpaid internship, so I get it why
Yeah,
he
yeah.
selected me.
Mhm.
I had no experience at all. I don't recommend doing unpaid internships, but this one was an exception because my employer was quite nice. He
Mhm.
didn't really pressure me for work a lot. He was very flexible.
Mhm.
He wanted the interns to learn things, and like at the end of the internship, he even offered me a paid position, but I couldn't do that because of GSoC. So uh, I guess it was just a matter of luck, you know. I didn't have any experience at that point. I just applied,
Mhm.
and uh, like I've been very shameless about applying to positions. Like even now, I apply to senior engineering positions, even though I'm not qualified for it. So like just for fun, I do that.
Mhm.
So I did it and I got it. So it was it did help me with my self confidence, I guess. I
Mhm.
did learn a few things, but I learned mostly about my shortcomings as an engineer, and I think maybe at the middle of that internship or at the end of it, I decided that I need to buckle down and learn more.
Mhm. Okay. So then, how did you get the internship at GSoC, the work at GSoC then?
So GSoC was something I'd heard about. Like whenever you go to an engineering college, there are two things you hear about: ICBC and GSoC, right?
Mhm.
Everyone talks about it.
Okay.
So competitive programming for me was out of the question. I tried it in the first year,
Mhm.
uh, and I could only solve like the first two questions in a code chef challenge and all that. And after a point, I stopped enjoying it.
Mhm.
I thought I should stop it. And then there was this other thing that I hadn't tried, open source. So
Mhm.
I would hear about it. I would go to GitHub, check out a bunch of repos, go to what is that called, upforgrabs.com, and I wouldn't understand anything. Like I did this for 6 months,
Okay.
and I would be just lurking around different GitHub repos, and nothing would make sense.
Hmm.
And the reason for that was because I'd never written code that did something,
Okay.
or like I'd never written code keeping in mind that it needs to do something besides solving a question in
Hmm.
one of those code shift challenges or whatever.
Hmm.
So, I had to change my approach a bit. So what I did was I started learning Python,
Hmm.
and while learning Python, I made like small CLI tools and all. So
Hmm.
I guess that is when things started to get clear, and I could see the applications of programming and programs turning into software, no matter how useless those softwares might have been. And
Hmm.
then I think I started contributing. My first PR was to DuckDuckGo, which was just a JSON file. It wasn't any program, but again, it did wonders for my self-confidence, getting a PR merged.
Hmm. So how long was this, like from the moment you started thinking of contributing or learning something to merging your first PR?
So I told you like 6 months of frustration, then built a few tools in Python, and then my first PR was during my summer vacations of the first year. And it took me 8 hours just to write that JSON file.
Okay.
So I guess that was it. And after that, I started contributing to Koala.
Hmm.
And Koala was a very thriving community at that time. They had amazing newcomer guidelines.
Hmm.
Almost everything was well documented.
Hmm.
They taught you a lot about Git. So the community, like everyone was nice, welcoming. No one was rude. No one was arrogant. So they were hell bent on teaching you Git for starters.
Okay.
So they had very strict guidelines, and you had to follow them to get a PR merged.
Hmm.
And it was a very nice process. So I started contributing to Koala.
Hmm.
I made a few PRs, and then I hit a roadblock. I couldn't move forward.
Hmm.
And this was before GSoC, so I'm talking about third semester.
Okay.
And after that, I just kept looking at the GSoC projects. I think during winters,
Hmm.
maybe it was October or November, I started to look at the projects, and I had shortlisted a few in my head, even though they made no sense to me. But one of their projects that I ended up working on, I found that very interesting. So I just got in touch with one of the few mentors
Hmm.
and started discussing things around it. And then I did a few tasks around it. One of them was documenting the new core of Koala. So they were transitioning. Actually, even I don't remember the specific details. I've forgotten a lot of it, but they were transitioning from the old core to the new core, and there was no documentation available. So I asked my mentor that, hey, can I do this?
Hmm.
And he said, okay. And I ended up documenting all of it.
Hmm.
And it was a big PR, and I think it ended up getting 200 plus comments or whatever. But anyway, in the end, it got merged. It helped me a lot with understanding my project. And I submitted the proposal for it, and I got in.
So it's like even if you don't know the when the projects are mentioned for GSoC and all, even if you don't know about it, you can still try.
Yeah, sure. You should always try. I guess, see, the best way to learn software engineering, at least in our country, where
Hmm.
the curriculum is outdated and the opportunities are less, I think is through open source.
Okay.
There are only like two avenues available to undergraduates. And there's one is competitive programming, which will, I guess, help you with your problem solving skills, and it can open up a lot of opportunities in terms of companies that interview that way, like Microsoft or Amazon, or what people call FAANG, right? But if you want to learn software engineering, you can either learn it on your own by building stuff, but there's a limit to that. There's a point at which you start plateauing, your progress doesn't go up, and the only way for you to make sure that it goes forward is to work with other developers and learn from them, because you will be working with developers having different levels of experience. Okay, you will be working with people who have decades of experience building software. You will pick up best practices, because otherwise your code won't get merged. So I think that is the best way to learn software engineering, even if you don't want to do GSoC. Also, another thing is that I know that GSoC is very important for an undergrad's career, and if you have it at the back of your mind, it's great. But even if you don't get selected, you will end up learning something, even if you get a few BRs merged. So I guess everyone should try it.
Okay. So that's nice. So what is your opinion on the present college curriculum right now? Whatever they're teaching in colleges and all. You're from triple IIT, right? So it might be a bit different in your college, but probably all the normal engineering colleges in India. So what is your opinion on that?
I'm not. I don't really think my college teaches anything different in terms of engineering. So a lot of like theoretical CS, most of it stays the same,
Hmm.
but the way it is taught, I think that is outdated. Like in case of RDBMS, like if you're studying relational databases at a university, I guess this gets started with UML diagrams, which are awfully boring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
So I think they take a top-down approach, but I guess a bottom-up approach would be better for it, when you understand the internals of a database and then go to higher levels of abstraction. So I guess the way it's taught is it's outdated, and people can lose interest. I ended up losing interest, but I think these subjects are beneficial. I do regret not studying them enough, and now that I want to, I just don't find enough time for it. I could still learn them, but I'm short on time, and it is a much longer process now. So if you have these courses in your curriculum, my only advice would be to check out alternative resources for learning them and learn them. Maybe if you're not learning them in the class, you learn them on your own time. It will be beneficial to you. And for example, like operating systems, I don't know which book is taught in colleges. I never opened mine, but I know this one great book that my best friend recommended to me. It was called Operating System in 3 Easy Steps, OSTEP. And I think the book is open source. It has a bunch of great exercises. It's written very well. It doesn't bore you. And you can check it out on GitHub. And for databases, for example, you can check out Alex Petrov's database internals. So that book takes a bottom-up approach. It teaches you about the storage engines rather than the databases. So these are a few things you can check out.
Okay.
But I
So
would not recommend like completely ignoring them, which I did.
okay. Yeah, that's true. So how did you get interested in distributed systems and all? How did you know that, okay, you wanted to work in this field itself?
Um, not really sure what attracted me to it first, but I guess if you stumble upon backend engineering, you end up stumbling upon distributed systems. You can't really avoid it, because once you start building web services, eventually you have to make them scalable, right? The scale increases, and you have to change your servers according to that. And then as the scale increases, distributed systems come into picture, right? So I guess if anyone is in backend engineering, they must have heard of the term or come across it. So that the same was the case with me. Also, I always used to like have this I I would have this lack of sense of belonging, like people who do machine learning, you can
Yeah.
say like we do machine learning and reinforcement learning and deep learning or whatever they do. They know their specializations and all of that. So I would always question myself, like, what do I even do
Yeah.
when I was contributing to Koala? Like, what developer am I? And people call themselves machine learning engineers and front end developers. What am I? So I guess I found a sense of belonging in this. I always found it interesting. So, and there's a lot to learn. And it's a very broad subject.
Okay. So now, given a chance to join a FAANG company or a startup or maybe open source company, what would you prefer? Why and why?
FAANG, they won't take me. But if they were to, it depends on the work. So even if you join an established startup or something like Google, there won't be much difference in the pay.
Okay,
They
pace.
pay
Yeah.
you, yeah. So the salary is more or less the same. The only difference with the companies like Amazon or Google is that you get stock options, and even those stock options, you can only make use of them after like 2 or 3 years of employment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that is more of like an anchor to keep your employee with you. So in terms of pay or benefits, it's more or less the same. So what it comes down to is work. So if the work is interesting, if it's, let's say I get interested in in WebAssembly in the coming years, and I want to have a job that involves WebAssembly, and I get a job at doing WebAssembly at Cloudflare or Fastly. But I also have an offer from Google doing something else, not WebAssembly. So I would go for Fastly or Cloudflare rather than Google, right? Because that's what is interesting to me.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So apart from this thing, what do you think are good steps to be a good backend developer? What all you should follow? Good software engineering practices.
I can't remember anything off the top of my head, but
Okay. Okay. It's fine.
what you can do is like just like start out by building uh, a REST API. Microsoft has some very good docs on REST, the protocol itself. So you can always check them out, but that is for a later point in time. What you should do is start out by building a simple server that does a get or a post and try pinging it. And I think that's just enough to get started. For best practices, you can only learn so much from documentation. I would just suggest that start contributing to any open source project, and you will pick them up as you go along.
Okay. So another question is you had applied for like Percona and Hackerrank and all. So they never asked you programming related questions or like data structures and algorithms, or how was your kind of interview there?
So which one do you want me to
We can go
start
with
with first?
We can go with Hackerrank first.
So Hackerrank, I don't know how their full-time interviews are. I think the full-time interviews do involve system design and all of that. I used to see Hari interviewing people
Mm-hmm.
from his office, so I'm just guessing. But in terms of internship, they only take a look at your resume, then you have a call with one of their engineering managers, and they ask you questions related to the things you have on your resume. So if you have done a data structure related project, so of course they'll ask you about it. Let's say you you implemented a skip list in C++ or whatever. If that project is on your resume, they'll ask you about it. The second round is again with Hari. it's the same way. So he asks you about things on your resume. Why did you build this? Uh, Explain this project and stuff like that. Percona has a longer interview process because, well, full time, they don't take interns. So the first is the resume screening. After that, you have an HR interview, which is just basic questions: what kind of engineering you do, and all of that. When will you be available? The second is with your potential manager. So that is just like something that is just a friendly chat where they want to see if they would like to work with you. So I can't really tell any specific questions because I wasn't really asked any specific questions. She just called me up and talked. So, and then there are two more rounds. So another round is will be with, like, my round was with the vice president of engineering and another director of engineering. So that is where they try to assess whether you will be a good fit for a team. So they will ask you questions like how do you handle a situation in which your coworker is an asshole, right? Okay, how do you communicate with them? What would you do if we were to tell you to design microservices? What would be your criterias for going ahead with the projects? What are the things that you will consider? Stuff like that. Very subjective questions. They just want to see how you think, or they would ask you, how do you learn a new programming language? After that, you get a technical task. What was my technical task? I had to write a library to manage OS processes in Go. So you write up the task, you send it, then one of the technical architects reviews it. If you pass, if you're following best practices and all of that, and then you get an interview with them, a senior engineer and a technical architect. So I had an interview with them. They asked me questions related to my code. Why did I do this? Why did I do that? Like, why did you use a bi-directional channel here? Why, why not this? Why not that? And some general questions like the difference between HTTP 1.1 and 2. So there's no like fixed set of questions.
Okay.
They just want to see your general knowledge in terms of software and how you write code. And once you pass that interview, it's like you got the job and you just have a final call with the CEO, which is more of a formality.
So how many rounds did you have in Percona totally?
I just told you. So HR, and then another one
That's
with
so
your
many.
manager, and then the one with the VP, and then the one about your task. So 4 interviews, I guess, plus a technical task.
Okay. So how many languages do you know? You mentioned yourself as a polyglot, right? So how many languages you know, and which is your favorite one among all?
I don't have a favorite language, and I think at this point I only know Go well,
Okay.
and just like little bit of everything. So I do like discussing languages, uh, like different features. I like languages for their features, or I dislike them for their shortcomings. I don't think I can pick a favorite language at this point. One language that does impress me a lot is Rust.
Okay. Rust. Okay. Nice. Then apart from engineering and all, what do you do in your free time? Hobbies?
Um, well, these days I've started cooking, so well,
Okay.
mostly cook. If you're living on your own, then you have to cook. There's no other choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I mostly cook these days, and besides that, I like going on runs. I like playing with dogs. That's it.
Okay. Okay. That's nice. So your suggestions to anybody who's starting with backend development, especially who wants to learn full, go deep into backend development and all, and distributed systems.
Mm, so the same answer as before, like start out with writing a vanilla server, like very simple. Write the server, run it, and then make curl requests to it. If you seem to like it, then go ahead with it. Once you have done that, uh, other things you can take a look at are the different languages that are available for backend development. So you can do Ruby on Rails, or you can simply do Node.js or Go. But if you are interested in distributed systems, I would highly recommend Go. First, because of the very small learning curve. So Go doesn't have a lot of features. It the intent behind Go was to make a small productive language, and it is. You can get productive in it in about a week. The second reason is easy concurrency. So Go, unlike Rust, will let you make mistakes. Okay, it can uh, uh, detect a few race conditions and all of that if you're writing concurrent code, but it's not as good at Rust at doing that. But still, it's great for beginners because it's very easy to understand. It is based on this model called CSP. CSP is a concurrency model. So unlike async and await, which is something I still haven't understood. I haven't really gone much deep into it, but whenever I see any async code, I can't read it well. But with Go routines and channels, concurrency becomes very easy, and you can almost visualize some of the things.
Okay.
So, what I would recommend if you want to go into distributed systems, Go is a very good bet. It might not be the best language, but it does have the job opportunities. It is very learnable. It does make concurrency very easy. Like Go was the first language uh, that made concurrency easy for me. My first introduction to it was through Python with async IO, which is something I just told I didn't understood. So Go will be a great bet, and then you can transition into other languages. Like if you like Go, you will end up liking Erlang or Elixir. If you like both Go and Ruby, you will love Elixir because Elixir looks like Ruby, and the concurrency model is based on Erlang, which is very similar to that of Go.
Okay.
Well, just a bunch of advice off the top of my head. That is all I can
Okay.
think of.
Okay. Thank you. I had another one question. So like when you think of contributing to open source, I feel that the initial threshold itself is very high, right? Like you want to start
Yeah.
contributing, you won't understand, then most of the people drop off in the initial stages itself.
Yeah.
So what do you feel should we do to improve that?
So that initial threshold that you talked about will
Yeah.
always be there. Even for me, when I'm contributing to a new code base,
Mm-hmm.
like the first day me would have taken a few weeks. Now I take a few days. So something has improved, but still I need some time. So what you should do is, what I do is, this is my thought process while solving an issue, is
Okay.
I look for all the keywords in an issue, the ones I know, I can understand. The ones I don't know, if these are general software terms, you can always Google them. The ones that are not general terms and are related to the code base, you grep for them. Okay, so you know grep, like git grep or the tool for searching stuff. So whatever keywords I find in an issue description, I just grep for them throughout the code base. Now, once I have grepped for them, I see all the occurrences of those, and I
Okay.
know which parts of the code base I need to focus at.
Okay.
Okay, so that makes it a bit easier because the things that newcomers find most difficult is they start looking everywhere in the code base. I've seen this question from a lot of juniors, like, do I need to understand the whole code base? Like, you can't. The thing that I work on in my company, I don't understand the whole code base. It's just been 3 months, and I don't even think I will understand the whole code base in 6 months. it will take time. So all you need to do is understand the parts that are related to the issue. Once you've understood it, let's say it's something like adding a new API endpoint. So these are very common PRs. You can always go to GitHub and look for related PRs,
Okay.
and see how someone else has added an API endpoint. And you can use that PR for reference. In case there is no other reference, well, you have to get started on your own. But once you've narrowed the problem down to a few parts of the code base, it's just like writing any other program. So the crux is like narrowing it down.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Yeah, that's it. I think we talked plenty about a lot of stuff. Anything else you want to say or share? Final words?
I guess like these two pieces of advice I would like to give to any undergrads out there. One is to take care of your health. I thought I would never get something like carpal tunnel. I thought I would get it like 10 years later when I'm in my 30s, but I got it because I had a bad setup, I had a bad keyboard. So whenever you make a few bucks, have this separate fund where you can take some
Yeah.
and invest in like a good ergonomic setup. The other advice would be to steer clear of people who have strong opinions. So it's okay to have strong opinions, but like there's this term I came across a few years ago. It's called strong opinions but loosely held, which essentially means that it's okay to have strong opinions, but in case of a debate, if they are found out to be wrong, people are not too arrogant to still hold on to them. All right. So if someone tells you that you're from a tier 3 college and you'll never get this job, or you have to do competitive programming to get this job, or you have to do open source to get this job, if they come across as too strong or too biased, just ignore them. You will find a lot of people. Just ignore them.
Okay. Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah, that's it. I think we're done. If you have anything else, like if they want something, I'll just put your links in the comment section. If somebody wants, they can contact you. Apart from that, it was nice talking to you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, likewise, Guru. Thank you.
Okay.